From the creators of Relevant Magazine, this is the Relevant Podcast.
I wanna feel just a little, just a little, just a little. Put my heart in the middle, in the middle, in the middle. Wanna live just a little, just a little, just a little. Wanna feel just a little, just a little bit more.
It's Friday, July 5th, 2019, and it's the Relevant Podcast. I'm your host, Cameron Strang, and here with me in our Orlando studios on the ones and twos, my illustrious brother, Chandler Strang.
Switching around. Hello.
On the Skype line from Nashville, Tennessee, Tyler Huckabee.
Hey, everybody.
And our roving reporter today, calling
That's
in
right.
from New York, Jesse Carey.
That's right. Visiting the in-laws, heading down to the Jersey Shore. As soon as we wrap this, I will be on the highway down the turnpike to the shore. So this is technically our Jersey Shore episode, I think. I think this counts this year,
Our annual. Yeah, I'm looking at Jesse on Skype. He's already got the gel in his hair. It's spiked straight up, and he apparently went bronzing
like
this
a
morning.
hedgehog.
Yeah, like a hedgehog.
That's right. And what you guys can't see is that my entire upper body is covered with new tribal tattoos. So I'm very excited about the new ink. Gonna unveil it today. I got my American flag. I got new board shorts. They are half American flag, half Italian flag. So I'm very excited to be soaking up the sun.
Speaking of tribal tattoos, I saw something the other day I wanted to get you guys' read on. I wanted to bring this to the experts to run it up the tribal tattoo. I've got sort of a fondness for bad tattoos. It's one of my bad day Googles is like, you know what? I need to take a breather. I need to sit back a little bit, and I need to Google bad tattoos and just let the waves of Schadenfreude wash over me a little bit.
Hey, at least I don't have permanent fake crooked eyebrows
Exactly,
on my face
exactly.
that look like I'm permanently confused. Because I've seen those. Whenever I have a bad day, I'm like, at least I'm not this person who has permanently confused expression tattooed on their face.
But this is what I saw in the wild. This wasn't a Google. This came to me.
Okay.
And it was a guy, and he was wearing shorts and sandals, and that's the only way I was able to get almost the full picture, but I was not able to see the full thing for reasons that will become apparent. So it started down on his ankles, and it was a brontosaurus. It was a dinosaur standing around like its forelegs were around his own feet, and then the leg went all the way up his leg, and the neck snuck up his shorts. And I have reason to believe that the head may have ended along the backside of his butt. And I think that would be, and it was very big. It was very detailed. This was not like a cartoon. This was like Jurassic Park level, like Steven Spielberg looking.
Hold on. Time out real quick. I want you to continue. But what we know right now is this was not just a bad decision one night out.
Oh no.
This wasn't you're out with the bros and you woke up the next morning and you have the Monster Energy logo and red, white, and blue on your shoulder.
Right.
This was premeditated.
This was
possibly multiple sessions. Okay, continue.
I would be surprised if it was one session. I don't think, unless this man has extraordinary tolerance for pain, which, given his decision-making skills, is not impossible. But this was, so I was watching this, it was definitely like a choice. This is a big choice that you say for the rest of my life, this is going to be, I'm going to leave people wondering. I didn't see all the way up. I don't know, but that would be, my guess would be that there's a brontosaurus face tattooed on this guy's butt. Is there a version of this that is like, is there a person you can think of in your life? You're like, you know what? That's just who he is. That's just how he. That's
Phil, man. Phil just loves Brontosaurus.
Classic Steve for you, exactly.
My guess is that it started out. He probably has an affinity for that. That period of history, and
Sure.
and it's probably started out with the head. on the left cheek.
That's interesting.
My thought is that it's that. And then over the years, it's like, you know what? I need to just go for it. I need to just do it. And he talked himself into extending it down the leg and
that's
completing
true,
the
because
body.
it could have started out kind of a secret. I hadn't thought about that. Like, this is just my little gift to myself.
But then he was like, you know what? I'm going for it. Like, he finally...
Every year, I'm going to add a new body part to this dinosaur.
He just kept going, session after session, just a little bit, year after year, until finally he's like, oh no, I got the full... Now it's just weird if I don't do the full dinosaur.
Right.
Because I got half of it.
Once it peeks out of the shorts, you got to go. You're in. Yeah.
If you want it. So it was good.
Here's okay. Since we're off to the races talking about bad tattoos, just like we all planned on for today. This is the episode. This is the episode where we're rolling out our 100th issue. It's a giant milestone, and we decided to dedicate the most important part of the show to bad tattoos, which I support. I want to talk about one that I had a dilemma with the other day. I was doing the same thing. I ended up on a bad tattoo listicle, right? And this was just my, while I'm second screening, I'm watching The Office, trying to wind down for bed and getting some laughs looking at bad tattoos, right? And I see one. It's clearly was taken at some kind of music festival, but it was like an amphitheater or something where they have that big mountain seating. And there's a guy shirtless, obviously, sitting on the grassy hill. There's people all around him. And he's got a back piece, which is, from shoulder to waistline, okay? Takes up his whole back, and it is Jesus coming through the clouds playing a bass guitar, not even an electric guitar. It was a very intentional decision that for some reason this Jesus was coming back to the second coming was happening. And it wasn't ironic. Like, it looked like this guy this was a piece of art. Okay. This wasn't like another one of those like multiple sessions potentially. Definitely had to talk to the artist through this. Like, here's what I'm thinking. So it's Jesus coming through the clouds, the second coming, shoulder to waist, playing bass guitar. I have so many questions about it. But one, why does he need to be playing an instrument when he comes back down? Two, bass? What a weird decision. Any other instrument would have made more sense. But if Jesus is coming through, I expect a trumpet. I could expect a guitar solo. I could expect drums. But what you don't expect is bum 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 bum. It's impossible to sound cool with just the bass. Like if the skies open up and this is the moment that his bride has been waiting 2,000 years for, we don't expect we don't expect slapping the bass.
Seinfeld.
We're wearing trumpets.
All right, I got it. I know what happened. He obviously is a bassist. Obviously, he's in a band at some point and is a bassist. Yeah. At that point, or in that season of life, he got a big old bass guitar on his back.
Yeah.
Okay.
It started with the bass.
It started with the bass, and then he found faith. He found our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He came to faith later.
So this is a good story.
How can I commemorate my faith in a way that would, I'm going to add the Jesus to the bass, and it's a personal connection that he has to our Lord and Savior.
I like this theory. He is like just like a really passionate bass guy.
Yeah. Gets
a sweet, realistic bass. Yeah. And when he gets saved, it's like a dramatic salvation too.
Yeah, right.
This isn't one.
This is the road of Emmaus.
He is that guy in that painting we talked about where Jesus is behind him, like lifting him up, pulling the heroin needle out of his arm.
Yes.
He's such a bad dude. He's got tarot cards on the table,
yes,
a loaded pistol, a switchblade, and nunchucks hanging on the doorknob behind him, and Jesus lifted him out of that.
Right.
And the only way that he could show his dedication to his new faith is to build a realistic Jesus coming through the clouds around the pre-existing base.
Yes.
That's the only theory that makes any sense.
Yes,
Cameron.
I agree.
I would really like for there to be some sort of, that Christian art, that kind of kitschy Christian art, in which there'd be like a physician, but Jesus is like reaching his hands around and he's the one doing the actual. Or we talked about the heroin needle, obviously. There's more benign versions of it than just heroin, though. I feel like there is a market get out there for bass player, like a painting of a bass player, but Jesus, you can kind of see Jesus's hands peeking in the robes, reaching around
And plucking
through his
strings.
through his like going out shirt, his stripy button up shirt, and he's the one doing the sweet bass riffs on Sunday morning for the worship band. Or you could do a full set. You could be in the drum behind that little plastic drum cage. You just see a little bit of Jesus's hands.
Jesus is playing every instrument in the praise band. Yeah, it's like the poem. All of a sudden I saw two. There was only one set of footprints. That's the reason he was carrying me. It was like all of a sudden I was doing the E minor scale, and I realized it was Jesus slapping the bass riff.
Yeah.
Where were you in the minor key when we had to do the key change that we weren't ready for? My son, that was when I was actually doing the licks right there for you, my man, bro.
Man, Jesus, say my man.
The other conflict I came across when I saw this tattoo, I was like, well, this has to be a web slice on relevantmagazine.com. And the thing was, I was sitting there on my computer. It's like 10 o'clock. I was like, I got to write this up. It's too funny. And I was sitting there and I rewrote the headline 15 times. I'm like, there's no headline that works for this. Here's a guy with a tattoo of Jesus slapping the bass. What works? There's nothing newsy about this. This is clearly a couple-year-old picture. It would just be a weird flex for us to throw up that slice. I'm not saying I won't do it. I'm not saying on a slow day. I've not been holding it in my pocket and be like, Tyler, we need a little traffic here, man. I think it's time to pull out that ace up our sleeves. You know what I'm talking about?
The bass.
That rando in the cutoff jean shorts with the back piece with Jesus slapping the bass.
Well, despite this beginning, we have a great show in store for you today. Coming up later, rapper Tedashii joins us for a very interesting conversation about the state of the church and where we're going. It's really fascinating. It's part of a larger thing that we're doing in the 100th issue of Relevant. And so guess what? This week, the 100th issue of Relevant debuts, and we're going to tell you all about it. We're very excited, and that's coming up later. So we have two segments coming up. It'll be fun. All right, well, moving the show along. Stay tuned. Up next, it's the Hot List. You're listening to By Benico. The song is It's Not True Love. At the beginning of the podcast, you heard Fits in the Tantrums with All the Feels. Well, today's show is brought to you by Squarespace. Whether you need a landing page, a beautiful gallery, a professional blog, or an online store, it's all included with your Squarespace website. Creating a site with Squarespace is a simple, intuitive process. You can add and arrange your content and features with a click of a mouse. You can even design a best-in-class online store with Squarespace's award-winning templates, customizable settings, and more, all without a single plugin. Including all the tools you need to track inventory, process orders, and send custom emails in one intuitive interface, Squarespace Commerce allows you to understand every aspect of your business. And right now, Squarespace is offering Relevant podcast listeners a special deal. You can go to squarespace.com/relevant for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch your site, use the offer code RELEVANT to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I've used Squarespace for years and highly recommend it. Well, it's time for...
It's the hot list, the hot list. It's just
Man, it would have been better if you made one that had a prominent bass line.
It should just be the outro song this week has to just be a bass riff.
the Seinfeld.
Yeah, Jesus coming from heaven with the Seinfeld theme playing doesn't really strike the terror in the hearts of those that are about to be judged.
Vanquished.
Enemies of God, fear this. Come forth for the white throne judgment.
Well, clearly that's got to be the outro song today. All right, coming in number 5 this week. Well, it might be happening. A Breaking Bad movie could be happening, quote, soon. About a week and a half ago, both Aaron Paul and Bryan Cranston, who obviously starred as Walt White and Jesse Pinkman in the acclaimed TV series, tweeted a mysterious picture of a donkey accompanied by the word soon. No explanation was given, but there's been some industry rumors that a Breaking Bad movie was in the works and would be released to Netflix. Considering that Walt White died at the end of the series, or at least appeared to, it's been unclear how or if he would be involved in the movie. However, the matching donkey picture seems to suggest that somehow he'd be involved. Now, both actors have posted a new image of a duo crossing a river, and it seems clear that both will be in the film. But even more exciting than the image of the duo appearing to cross a river is the caption, "Even sooner." What we do know is that series creator Vince Gilligan is involved, and the plot of the film will, quote, track the escape of a kidnapped man and his quest for freedom. So there you go.
I'm like cautiously excited for this because I love Better Call Saul. I love that there's like this sort of like Breaking Bad universe. But I'm like, it's pretty clear, obviously, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Breaking Bad from 6 years ago, it seemed pretty evident that Walt White died at the end. The movie wouldn't work as a prequel because if you've watched Breaking Bad, it is a deep origin story. Both of the characters evolve greatly, so it wouldn't work as a prequel. And so the only logical explanation that is that like it's like the ghost of Walt White or it's like some sort of figment of Jesse Pinkman's imagination. That makes me not so excited because the great thing about Breaking Bad, I feel like, was their dedication to realism. Like it's not like The Sopranos when they, whack a guy. You never understand like, well, how do they get rid of the body and the evidence? No, Breaking Bad, that's a 3-episode arc to try to take care of those details. So how they're going to reincorporate Walt White into the film, I don't know. I'm a little nervous about this. How do you guys feel?
Well, first of all, about The Sopranos, I don't know why I am, but right now I'm rewatching the entire series. And when they, as you so eloquently stated, whack a guy,
yeah,
they do detail how they dispose of the body. Just FYI. But
not in the depth that Breaking Bad would. Like Breaking Bad, like melting a drug dealer was like half the first season, like getting rid of a body in the basement. They
weren't as efficient at it as the
Sopranos
Sopranos.
are just better. The Sopranos knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I think Vince Gilligan figured out who he was as a show creator as the show figured out what it was. Right? I mean, we know like the first 2 seasons of Breaking Bad, he thought it was a dark comedy. I mean, he's talked about this. Like, I thought I was writing a dark comedy, which is why he cast Malcolm in the Middle's dad. It was like this, like weird dark comedy. And then they figured out, oh no, wait, Bryan Cranston is one of the best dramatic actors of a generation. Yeah. And they figured out like, we're not going kitsch with this. But if you look at some of the casting, like some of the characters are kind of cartoonish and stuff. It's because they thought it was a different show at the beginning. He figured out what the show was. Now, some of the casting didn't make sense, but, he figured it out. Seasons 3 and beyond, as we all know, it became the best show, one of the best shows ever made. I think he proved to me that this movie will be good because Better Call Saul is good.
I agree with that.
If Better Call Saul was a disappointment, I wouldn't want a movie. But Better Call Saul is as good as the best of Breaking Bad.
It might even be like when all said and done, Better Call Saul might be a better show than Breaking Bad.
Well, because he didn't have to figure it out. He started at 10. He started at great, and continued it. And that's why I'm going, like, he's at his peak right now. Vince Gilligan, the show writers and creators, directors, they're at their peak. So how could this be bad?
And the thing is, I've heard even like as soon as like the coming weeks, this movie could be out. Like that they've been doing it all in secret. And I've heard rumors that we could even see it as soon as like next weekend. I don't know if that's going to happen, but obviously it's been under production for a while. And so we'll see.
I don't understand. I don't understand the strategy of making a high budget, excellent movie only for Netflix. I don't get why Netflix, if Netflix Studios wants to own it and own the catalog long term, fine. But why wouldn't they release it? Why wouldn't Netflix release it to theaters? Like, because that movie could make $100 million, which is money in Netflix's bank, and then Netflix owns it after it's in the theaters. Why don't they release it to theaters? I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't understand that with a couple of their, like there was, Brad Pitt was in that movie that I think it was about General Petraeus. It was, a biopic of a prominent political figure starring arguably, the most well-known actor, or at least, on a very short list of the most well-known actors in Hollywood, releases right to Netflix. No one watches it, like if that would have, I mean, you look at some of these Adam McKay, you look at like the Dick Cheney movie or something. I mean, at the very minimum, like you said, Cameron, that's going to bring in, even if the Brad Pitt one's a little niche, that's still going to bring $50-60 million over the course of the theatrical run. They're burying it on Netflix. A lot of people never even knew that movie was ever released.
You're telling me it apparently doesn't fit my algorithm because I've never even heard of it. So it's crazy. Like, why wouldn't
Netflix just throwing this investor money at these trying to raise its own value, its own like potential value? Because there's no way they're recouping. I don't think you could possibly, no matter how many subscribers, because the rumor is nobody knows. They haven't released the numbers yet, but the rumor is they have yet to turn a profit as a company.
No, that's right. No. That's not a rumor. That's fact. They hold on. I can tell you right now. Okay, so the long answer is, short answer is, since 2011, when they started, doing streaming, Netflix has not had any positive cash flow. They lose money every year. It started back in 97 though, remember, with DVD mailings and stuff like that. But when they pivoted their business model, so last year, they spent $15.7 billion on content, and they have 130 million subscribers. They lost over $2 billion last year.
That is insane. And the thing is, like, it's still, Netflix stock is still not cheap. Like, for a company that bleeds every year, obviously it's still worth a lot of money. By the way, that movie is called War Machine, and it released in 2017, and it's about the 4-star General Glenn McMahon. You may remember he was the one who, after he had kind of like some controversial quotes in a Rolling Stone profile, ended up losing his job. But anyway, but movies like that, again, you got Brad Pitt in a politically charged biopic war movie, and you just bury it, and 2 years later, people are like, "Oh, that happened." Yeah, I don't understand their marketing strategy at all with a lot of stuff.
I wonder if they're just dumping so much money into getting these names and getting these features. They don't have a whole lot of money left over for marketing, because the only one I ever see marketed at all is Stranger Things.
Yeah, and exactly. When you look at actual like marketing effort, like traditional marketing efforts, like, banner ads or guests going on the Tonight Show or something. Yeah, you see it a lot for Stranger Things, but there's been other really interesting shows that they just drop silently. And if you don't happen to stumble upon them, I know, Cameron, me and you both liked Huge in France, which it's sort of in the vein of like a Louis or a Marin, where it's like a middle-aged comedian, trying to kind of figure out his career. But it has this twist because he was popular in France, but no one knew him in the United States. And he's coming to reconnect with his family. A weird show, but also I thought super funny. Took some unexpected, dark, very interesting turns throughout the whole series. But if you didn't stumble upon it, how would you even know it's on Netflix?
Right.
Yeah.
Netflix also accounts for over a third of all internet bandwidth in the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah, during the
That's
evenings.
wild.
More than YouTube, Amazon, Hulu combined in the evening hours.
That's crazy.
36.5% of all downstream internet bandwidth is Netflix.
The internet is Netflix by like a substantial margin then.
Coming in number 4 this week, the first trailer for HBO's upcoming televangelism series called The Righteous Gemstones was released. So according to the official synopsis, the comedy is, quote, centers around a world-famous televangelist family with a long tradition of deviance, greed, and charitable work. The series stars Danny McBride, John Goodman, Adam Devine, and Edie Patterson. Here's a clip.
Your ability to accept me for the sinner I am only speaks to your greatness.
I stole that money fair and square.
Now we need to figure out a meaningful way in which we can divvy it up. How about we give half to the church and the other half we split 50-50?
70-30.
Church gets nothing, 60-40.
Deal.
I had a very hard time finding a usable clip. But I felt like that, like, you got the gist of it. They're criminal televangelists, because as with any Danny McBride vehicle, it is laced with, I'm just going to say it, very hilarious profanity throughout the trailer. The trailer was a hard R here. But there was one scene in the trailer where, John Goodman is evidently like the patriarch of this televangelism family, with, he's sort of the Oral Roberts to Danny McBride's Richard Roberts, right? And Danny McBride throws this giant mass baptism, and the implication is the only place they could find was like this big pool at a water park. And during the baptism, someone turns on the wave pool, and everyone's like, "Oh, everyone in their white robes is almost drowning." I'm not gonna lie.
The lights are going. Like, there's like the air horn sound. The pew, 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 pew. It was
And everyone just
very
screaming,
fun.
like lifeguards are jumping in the water with white robes on. I'm not gonna lie, I belly laughed. Like,
I laughed
that's
really
funny. But Cameron, you and I were talking about this. I think earlier this. I sent it to you earlier this week, and we got to talking about this.
Cameron had some misgivings.
Yeah, and I think they're very valid, because the opportunity was to really like offer meaningful commentary about, kind of televangelism and sort of like the crooked theology.
How money has infiltrated the ministry. I thought it shine a light on that a little bit. My issue was primarily the Hollywood issue of has anybody involved in the creation of this show ever gone to a megachurch, ever attended, ever watched Christian television? Because the tropes are so not even believable remotely, because the way they frame this family is very much like a mafia thing. There's like a shot in the trailer of like the bank vault with the money stacked up and the greed and the corruption, the whatever. And I'm going, you've lost the opportunity to like actually lampoon like the wealthy televangelists here, because it's not mafia. I just think they missed an opportunity. Now, that's not what they're trying to do. They're not trying to do commentary. I get that. Fine. But it's like that. I said to you guys, it's like that scene in that movie, 4 Christmases, where like they attended the Christmas Eve service, and it was like the pastor was wearing the priest collar. It was lights and lasers, like jock jams. And then like there was a black gospel choir, and like they did like nativity. Like it just made no sense. Like this was not in any realm, a possible. I know it's supposed to be comedy, but it's just like, have any of these writers ever gone to a church before?
Yeah, it's just
makes no
little
sense.
details.
But Cameron, if the Southern Baptist minister isn't wearing a collar like a Catholic priest, how will they know he's the pastor, Cameron?
Right.
How will,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Like
That's what I'm saying.
that's the
It sounds-
problem that they Yeah. Though I will say this, despite the, disregard for kind of accurate depictions and commentary, there was like a brief clip while, different little like a montage in the trailer. And one is Danny McBride looking right at the camera, wildly swinging a switchblade. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. You got Danny McBride dressed as a televangelist, for some reason, wildly swinging a switchblade at somebody. That's funny. Like, it's just subjectively.
It's like back in the day where like, all the dialogue on TV for a female character was written by men, and it wasn't like relatable. It wasn't accurate. It was like stereotypes. That just like almost like offensive. And I'm going, I'm not offended by this. I get what they're trying to do, but like just have one person in the room who would go, well, no, actually don't. That's a megachurch that they don't wear collars. Do that one detail. Like they would do that for anybody else, like any other character in their movie, but Christians for some reason just get painted with this massively broad stroke. That's like
there are some exceptions. I remember I was surprised watching. I know the show has fallen on sort of poor favor for good reason with House of Cards, but I remember their depictions of church in House of Cards feeling very lived in. I was like, this somebody here has been to a church before,
and crashing.
This feels right.
Crashing.
Oh, of course, crashing.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously
because
crashing.
but Pete was in the mission. One other show I want to get your thoughts on in this realm, because I felt like when we talked to Ira Glass about Come Sunday, they seem to take real care to try to depict the whole thing with accuracy. Everything from like Martin Sheen's office really looked like a building from ORU in the 70s. Did you feel like that movie kind of captured it more accurately?
Yeah, because even the church that the Carlton Pearson's church, it wasn't Carlton Pearson's church, but it was about that size, and it looked like what the church looked like. I mean, they did a great job depicting the culture and the detail and stuff like that. And again, we're not trying to like say, hey, it's got to be a documentary or whatever. Like, it's fine if you're making a comedy, whatever. I'm just going, have the care. You wouldn't do this. You wouldn't have like, oh, there's an Italian guy, so we're just going to like make him really like pizza and have a big mustache. And I mean, you wouldn't do
he's
that.
a plumber. Yeah.
You wouldn't do that, right? I mean, so why do that with Christians? I don't get it.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Coming in at number 3 this week in F, released a new single from his highly anticipated upcoming album. It's due out in late August. It's called The Search, and it's a follow-up to his massive hit album Perception, which debuted at number 1 on the Billboard charts and ended up going platinum. The rapper, who in his lyrics openly discusses Christian faith, has seen crossover success. He'll be performing again for the second time at Lollapalooza this summer. Here's a clip of the song When I Grow Up.
Yeah, I could go to college getting down like everybody else. Graduating, probably get a job that doesn't pay the bills. That'll make a lot of sense to me, forget the happy meals. I don't like the dollar menu, I would rather make a meal. Huh? Make a meal? No, I said make a meal. Home cooking, get the grill. How you want it? Pretty well? Everything I see is overdone to me, I'm not a dad. But I'ma get a record deal and say hello to Master Grill.
Hey guys, seriously, will the real Slim Shady please stand up? Sorry. I like it, but it does sound very Eminem-like. Does it not? I mean, I'm not the only one thinking that.
Eminem seems to think so because he kind of called that F out.
He did. Yeah, I remember that. I think we talked about it on the hot list like a few months ago. But hey, good for NF. I mean, he's kind of brought his own energy to that
song.
style.
I like the song.
He's a very talented artist. But yes, sounds a lot like another artist.
I couldn't do that. I can't sound like Eminem. You ever heard somebody try to do an Eminem impersonation? But they're terrible.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, Eminem is on a short list of, artists who are largely considered the greatest rappers of all time and really stands alone with his style and his lyrical delivery. So good for NF to kind of take that, style that maybe Eminem helped pioneer and bring like kind of a new angsty twist to it. Because the thing about NF, like, I feel like he did his, when you listen to his music, he kind of tapped into something like Post Malone did, which was sort of bringing that, like, not adolescent, but almost that like emo-y type of self-reflection into his hip hop, into his lyrics, which is kind of a fresh take for that style on the genre. It's not as dark lyrically as something like Eminem, or not as like politically or socially charged as someone like Kendrick. It does kind of tap into just that raw, very personal type of reflection and emotion,
All right, coming in number 2 this week, CCM star Nicole Nordeman wrote a moving Washington Post column pleading with Franklin Graham to help migrant children. Last week, she tweeted Franklin Graham asking him to help migrant children in government facilities through his ministry, Samaritan's Purse. According to lawyers and journalists who have visited the facilities, many of the children lack access to basic sanitation supplies, clean clothes, adequate food and water, and are forced to spend hours and hours in cages. One of the major initiatives of Franklin Graham's ministry, Samaritan's Purse, is Operation Christmas Child, which enables supporters to create and send shoeboxes full of supplies and toys to children in need around the world. So in her tweet, Nicole Nordeman volunteered to deliver shoeboxes to migrant children. And now, in her new column, she's asking Graham to use his influence to help the children. Graham is a vocal supporter of President Trump, and he's also has some influence with the president. So as she notes in her letter, you said on the Christian Broadcasting Network in 2018 that the zero tolerance family separation policy at the border was disgraceful and that you did not support it. About a week later, Trump signed an executive order to withdraw the original policy. She's asking Franklin Graham to lobby the White House to help migrant children at the border. She said, please ask Trump to sign the emergency legislation just passed by Congress that provides immediate aid and critical resources for children arriving unaccompanied at the border. Ask the president to ensure that our asylum laws are respected, ensuring that no one with a credible fear of persecution is deported to danger. Ask the president to undo the recent policy shift that has already forced 15,000 people to wait for months in Mexico for their asylum opportunity in border cities. Resources are depleted, U.S. legal counsel is scarce, and children are at risk for traffickers. So far, there hasn't been a response from Franklin Graham.
I'll say this. I am not like super familiar with Nicole Nordeman's music. I know her name, but I can't say that I know any of her songs off the top of my head. But I've been following on Twitter for a while. She not only is she like woke, her like conviction to use her platform to speak out against on issues that really any Christian should be concerned with. But for someone like her, where a lot of her audience, it's probably safe to assume are a bit more probably conservative politically and socially, she hasn't been afraid to take some risk. Look, the Washington Post is probably the second most important newspaper in America. and maybe in the top 5 in the world. And to write a column, an open letter calling out a major evangelical leader to try to do something, to use his platform, man, more power to her. I mean, I was really impressed by that.
I respect her a lot, and I remember that I grew up in a Nicole Nordeman household. The Huckabee family we're very into her, so I am familiar with her music. And you know what? Actually, I know we give a lot of CCM a hard time on here, but Nicole Nordeman she's a gifted songwriter, and her music was always definitely stood out from a lot of the radio CCM stuff. She was very good at what she did, and I appreciate. She's a great Twitter follow. If you're on Twitter, she speaks with a lot of conviction, a lot of eloquence, and and I've appreciated her voice on this and a lot of other issues.
Okay, coming in at number 1 this week on the Hot List, Michael B. Jordan could star in a new Matrix movie. The movie franchise that sparked 1,000 sermon illustrations in the early 2000s could be returning. Chad Stahelski, who recently directed John Wick Chapter 3, has started talk that Lily and Lena Wachowski, the sibling duo behind the first 3 Matrix films, are working on a 4th installment in the franchise. He told Yahoo Movies UK, quote, "I'm super happy that the Wachowskis are not just doing a Matrix, but they're expanding what we all loved. And if it's anywhere near the level of what they've already done, it wouldn't take more than a call to go, hey, we want you to be a stunt guy. And I'd probably go and get hit by a car." It should be noted that a rep for Stahelski later tried to do some damage control, releasing a statement that said his, quote, comments were in response to a hypothetical scenario where the Wachowskis would be involved, and he did not confirm them being attached to the new film. So according to some industry insiders, the film will be shot in Chicago under the secret name Project Ice Cream, and Michael B. Jordan is attached to star. In fact, he's reportedly been attached to the project since 2017. There's no word on a release date. I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Well, I like the subtext of this too, that this director who's like sitting with Keanu Reeves, like is obvious, he worked on, this guy, the guy who did John Wick 3, like did actual work on the first 3 Matrix movies. And it's not, you can read the Q&A, the transcript verbatim. It's not hypothetical at all. Like this was supposed to be a big secret. This was like the Breaking Bad thing. Like, don't tell anybody until we do the big reveal. And he's not talking hypothetically. Like it's definitely happening. I don't know, man. I feel like after the first Matrix movie, they could have just stopped there, to be honest.
Yeah,
like
exactly. I completely agree. It's like all we needed was 1. We don't need 4. Like, I don't get it.
One was interesting. I got 2 thoughts about this. First of all, I think it's an interesting world. The right writer could come along and do sort of an interesting spinoff. I don't need a remake, but an interesting little and another part of the Matrix cinematic universe. Here's another story that like that. I think there's material there given the right hands and the right script. Sure, it could be good. But the second thing is, I am way more interested in a Michael B. Jordan movie called Project Ice Cream that is actually about some sort of ice cream project, and would like that to be the actual movie.
No, I think that I love Michael B. Jordan starring it. Like, I think that would actually give it some fresh life because, especially the Creed movies were great and, Friday Night Lights and all that, but him as Killmonger in Black Panther, I think kind of showed his ability to be the most compelling thing on screen when a lot is happening on a screen. But my only other hesitation is like the Wachowskis obviously are incredibly talented and are incredibly influential filmmakers. But since the first Matrix movie, I don't know that aside from just being, very visually impressed by some of their films like Speed Racer or Cloud Atlas, I don't know that I've really cared about any of the movies as films, like they've been incredible visually, but aside from the Matrix, I don't know any of them that are all that memorable.
All right, well, that'll do it for
It's the Hot List, It's sizzling.
so inspiring. I want to commemorate that in a tattoo form. All right, stay tuned. Up next, we tell you about our 100th issue of Relevance. A big deal. Stay tuned. Don't fast forward.
Maybe I do it to myself. Maybe I do it to myself. Self-sabotage. Maybe I do it to myself. Maybe I do it to myself. Self-sabotage. I don't really try it all. Banging my head and my fist up against the wall. Maybe I do it to myself. Maybe I do it to myself. Self-sabotage.
You're listening to Moby Rich. The song is Sabotage. Well, this week we are premiering the 100th issue of Relevant Magazine. That is crazy. We debuted in print in March 2003, and July 2019 is our 100th issue. To celebrate, we will be bringing you special articles, special conversations for the next month, all month long. This is like a Mickey's 50th birthday. It's like a year-long celebration when you go to Disney. That's what's happening this summer. We're celebrating the 100th issue of Relevant. And the issue itself is a very special issue. It is not like any issue we've ever done, and we want to tell you about it. So joining us for this segment, obviously, Jesse Carey is with us, and joining us as well as our senior editor, Tyler Huckabee. Welcome, Tyler.
Hey, guys.
When we saw issue 100 on the horizon, our team started thinking and brainstorming, what do we want to do? Like, what would we want to do if we had a blank slate, could create any kind of an issue? What should we do with 100? And so we didn't want it to just be a retrospective. We didn't want it to be a normal issue. So it's kind of a special approach that we took.
Yeah, and this is where we're going to reveal it is a all magic eye issue. I can't believe we pulled this off, guys.
It was a huge challenge for our design team. It was pretty easy for the editorial process, actually, because there's no words.
Well, the words kind of float as you kind of...
Yeah, you can see just like words.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Relevant covers the intersection of faith and culture, but it's more than that. The name Relevant is the fact that God is relevant. Faith is relevant to all aspects of our life. So obviously it's a journey of faith directly that we're on, but that also impacts our life, our career, our relationships, how we engage culture, how we view justice and engage justice. And that's what Relevant covers. So to dive into that more deeply, we themed the entire issue into 4 sections: faith, life, culture, and justice. In each of those sections, we have a few things happening. 1, we look back over the last 100 issues or 16 years and kind of talk about the tent poles of what happened and what formed the movement of this generation and what God was doing in this generation during that time. So for the younger readers, it might be informative. For the older readers, they're like, yep, been there, and it's kind of instructive and nostalgic and kind of like, look at what happened along the way. It's important in any journey, in any movement, to kind of stop and have a halftime or have a, rest stops along the way and reflect. And what is a halftime in a game? I mean, you analyze what happened in the first half and you change course and you kind of strategize for the second half, right? And that's kind of what this issue is for Relevant and really what God's doing in this generation. So it's really fascinating. So the God section, we have an in-depth conversation with a lot of the faith leaders that were pivotal in this movement. Jesse, remind me of the 10 or 12 people that joined us for this Q&A.
So one of the things that we really wanted to do for each section was to represent a diverse panel of experts, of leaders, of influencers, of activists, of thinkers, of people who are not only leading the movement, but can also offer real insight into how where we've been informs where it's going. So that means there are people like David Kinnaman, who is like an expert in stats and research. That means someone who's like an academic, like Lauren Winner, who has been studying faith and faith trends for a long time, but also megachurch pastors. We have Danny Liebscher and Carl Lentz in the God section. That's Hillsong and Jesus culture. We have leaders like Yumeki Yon, who is an expert in race in the church. We have people more on the more progressive side, like Jen Hatmaker. We also have like worship leaders. Carrie Job is part of the story. So it's a really diverse group, not just in demographically, in terms of race, age, and gender, but also ideology. We have a lot of people from across the spectrum, which, Cameron, I know that's something that we've been very intentional about since the very beginning is, many streams, one river. And that was really the goal with these, is to have diversity, but also like a lot of different approaches to faith, justice, intentional living, and culture.
Well, and the faith in particular, I feel like, well, and justice and others, is, one of the things we've been very intentional about, and that's unusual historically in the Christian world, is we want to be bridge builders, and we want to reach out to a variety of voices and leaders, kind of outside of the bubble. And so that's why we cover a lot of the influencers and thought leaders that we do that are influencing mainstream culture. We talk within the church. We have, a Reformed leader next to a charismatic leader, and a Baptist leader next to a, African American church leader or something. We want to draw from a lot of different wells. And number one, to illuminate the areas that we agree on. What's the common ground of what God is doing and saying outside of your own context. And two, to be influenced by people that are in different aspects of faith or culture, so we can be stretched and challenged. And I think that that's how we grow. And I think it's an important thing. It's been there from day one with Relevant. And so it was really cool, putting together these panels, these groups, you just listed the faith panel, just to hear their variety of perspectives of what God has done over these last 15 years and where are we and where are we going?
Yeah.
And just to see the areas of agreeance and also different perspectives, it's really fascinating. And
and one of the other, cool things is in these roundtables too, we also offer this kind of retrospective look back at some of the moments and events that really shape the movement that we've been privileged enough to cover and be a part of. And, Cameron, Tyler, you guys know this, but, for the last few months, we've all been digging deep into the archives. And I have a stack of magazines that have been spread out on the floor of a room in my house for, 2 months now, that I've got to go through and remember how pivotal moments like the release of Blue Like Jazz was, or when Bono really linked arms with people like Rick Warren and cultural figures like Oprah and culture and the church, and then commerce to try to combat the global problems, and to see all these trends that emerged over the years, so we can see not only how they might have evolved and how that we can kind of correct some of that evolution and make it more effective, but also look at the roots of it to really understand where we come from. And so that was, this issue was such a fun exercise in doing that kind of stuff.
Because nothing that we're talking about comes from a void. I think that's what a lot of this was a reminder for me for, is that the things we're experiencing right now, there were people and moments and innovations and movements that brought us to that point. And being able to look back over the timeline, which we all worked hard on. Jesse, you worked especially hard on, was enlightening and honestly inspiring in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The question, I have a quick question, Jesse. If for the last few months you have a room in your house where the floor is covered with Relevant magazines, how have you vacuumed?
It is filthy right now. My whole family is sick with some sort of respiratory thing. And now that you say it, I think it's related to the other thing, Cameron. A lot of people don't know this. In the early days, we used some pretty cheap ink that I'm pretty sure is toxic. And I'm very concerned. I think I have mesothelioma. I'm calling a local lawyer. That's a whole, that's a story. Read about it in the next issue. It's an expose on this bad ink.
Oh my goodness.
And
I do think it's fascinating too, breaking this up into sections. It's it was really difficult because the whole point of Relevant is that faith is intertwined in all these other things. So to kind of break off and have a God conversation that didn't have a justice component or a, living differently component or a cultural engagement component was difficult. So, but breaking into the other areas, we had the justice section I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
Tell us the people, the panel that we gathered for the justice conversation.
Yeah. So we had people like Jeremy Courtney, who a lot of people know from Preemptive Love Coalition, Gary Haugen from IJM, Kristen Wright, who works with Open Doors, Jenny Yang, who works with World Relief. We also had Lisa Sharon Harper, who is one of the most important voices right now when it comes to racial reconciliation, racial justice in the church. Karen Swallow Pryor, who was recently on the podcast, who, along with being a noted and very well respected academic, has also been a voice for the pro-life movement in a very respected capacity. Kyle Maynard Shep, who has written for Relevant. He's also, part of a climate change think tank that actually, when AOC, the lawmaker, was trying to push forward the climate change legislation, she actually tweeted something that Kyle had written for Relevant. So, I mean, across, the justice section, the encouraging thing is like, there was a lot of crossover, like in the God and culture, like we have several people from the movies or from music or several pastors. The justice section, it was somewhat unique in that all of these people are super, super passionate about what they do and what they're a part of. But a lot of them are distinct areas that they, as Christians, as leaders, are taking on, whether it's race, the environment, life, anti-poverty. That was a section I was really proud of how it all came together.
It was interesting to see there the teamwork at play there, the way that all these justice sections are distinct, but also really linked, right? The way that the climate change is going to affect poverty in other countries, the way that the pro-life movement has also taken on immigration as a major cause. These people don't see themselves as working on different specific areas so much as they see themselves as each taking part of a broader justice movement that is dependent on all of them working together and succeeding.
I think it's been interesting. I think one of the defining characteristics of what God's done in this generation has been the integration of faith and justice. So, growing up in the church, it was historically, anytime you talked about Africa, it was about missions, and now as a natural and essential part, an outgrowth of our faith, how we engage justice and those, the importance of the others and not yourself, I think is something that has been formative in this generation, and I think will pivot and change how the church looks and engages the world for generations to come. And I think that's been really important. We talk about that in the issue. In the culture area, obviously Relevant's kind of known for the intersection of faith and culture and having celebrities on the cover and things like that. It was a lot of fun a little embarrassing, kind of looking back over the last 16 years. There's a
highs
few
and lows. Strikes and gutters, man. Strikes and gutters.
Hey, we did our best every issue.
Hey, let's just say music and art and entertainment has gotten a lot better than it used to be. Looking at the covers was a big reminder of that. But we've had some fascinating conversations over the years with people who are kind of influencing culture and the world through entertainment, especially. And talk to us about what we did in that section.
Yeah, so I mean, we tried to, even though most of the people we talk to are involved in music, movies, TV. A lot of them have really distinct approaches. So you have in that section people who are kind of more worship centric, but are also kind of pushing that forward musically, like a John Mark McMillan or like a Lisa Gungor. We have people in hip hop like Fern from Social Club Misfits, like Derek Minor. When on the movie end of the spectrum, we have someone who's like an insider, like a Jonathan Bach. But we also will have like Jerron Smith, who is the CEO of Unanimous Media, the company founded by Steph Curry. And it was just on the cover of Hollywood Reporter, that is dedicating themselves to making faith-based films that really up the quality. We have, Amina Brown, who's a really, well-respected spoken word poet. We have an artist that's sort of a crossover artist that has a really interesting backstory in Caleb Chapman, the son of Stephen Curtis Chapman, who's in a really popular indie rock band that, you can go see like on Lollapalooza. The Spectra, Natalie Manuel Lee, who, is an Instagram influencer who has kind of leveraged that into this talk show host for Hillsong Channel, where she's sitting down with people like Hailey Bieber. The spectrum there is really interesting. But what I found most interesting about that section is how many of how non-separated culture and faith have become. I mean, right. Earlier this week, Cameron, as listeners know, we had like Pete Holmes on the show. Pete Holmes just had a show about him and his faith on HBO, where right when we started, culture was at a place where it was noteworthy that like a band with like Christian roots like Switchfoot would have a top 40 hit. That wall between sacred and secular has really dissolved in a lot of ways when you look at artists like Chance and Kendrick. And I think what you'll see reading the roundtables and reading all these perspectives is that no matter what someone's, these individuals' faith backgrounds is, their voice into culture isn't limited to just the Christian world. Like they are really, these are voices that are making an impact, in the mainstream world as well as kind of like the traditional quote unquote Christian market.
And one thing that I really loved seeing is the way that these there's like a lot of different approaches to how faith should interact in the pop culture sphere. Whether it be, should you cross over from one side? How explicit should you be about your faith? What will our audiences tolerate? And again, this is an example of people who don't really see those things as being in contention. That this is not a group that it was fighting over who was doing it the right way. They worked together. They appreciated each other, and they recognized that a rising tide raises all ships, right? So there's room for somebody like Lecrae and somebody like Chance the Rapper in the same industry, both talking about their faith, doing it in very different ways, and both raising the profile of the ways that faith can be involved in pop culture. And I think that that's something that's important for us to remember too in these conversations. It's something the industry insiders that we talk to certainly have figured out.
It's the big shift when Relevant started, man. It was like us versus them, sacred versus secular.
Yeah.
Huge wall. You're in our camp or you're in their camp, and that's it. And I just was like, that is not what the Bible says. I mean, it says we should be in the world yet not of it. We should be light in the darkness. The previous generations, if you're looking back, hindsight's 2020. Previous generations, kind of like, we're scared of out there, right? The world is getting worse. Culture is negative. Satan's everywhere. So we're going to build a safe little bubble. We're going to retreat and we're going to huddle together and we're just going to wait till Jesus comes back because the world's getting worse and it's going to hell and we're just going to protect ourselves. This generation came up and said, no. The Bible talks about going into all the world. The Great Commission talks about we got to go engage. And so instead of leaning back and away from people different than us, this generation is leaning in and reaching out and wanting to engage culture, influence culture, and shape culture versus being afraid of culture. And again, that's the bridge building. That's the intentionality that we've been about since day one. And that comes out in this conversation very, very clearly. Another big area that we covered is life and how our faith changes how we engage life and live with intentionality. Tell us who the panel was for life.
Yeah, this one I was particularly proud of because when it comes to like these life issues, like, how do we live intentionally in ways that affect all aspects of our lives, for God's kingdom. So that can be your relationship, your job, your career, how you think about money, just how you think about yourself as a person and deal with issues like mental health. And so, when we're putting together this panel, we wanted to cover that full spectrum. Like if you're living life in your 20s and 30s, these are the issues that day to day, are really meaningful. And so we have, people like, Liz Bohannon and Blake Makowski to talk about the commerce and social entrepreneurism and using things for good. We have people like John Acuff who talk to us about finance and career. And, he kind of, was one of the big voices in that side hustle movement from a few years ago and, really challenged people to think differently about their careers, from the spectrum of technology and bioethics and where we're headed, from a technological standpoint, the issues that we need to concern with. We have Nigel Cameron, who's an incredibly well-respected academic. We have Jamie Trukowski to talk about mental health. We have Joe Saxton and Bianca Olthoff, who are talking about a lot of the issues of like developing into a better person and living your day-to-day life, whether it's on social media or in your relationships or in your career in a way that's going to build others up and build the kingdom of God. On the relationship spectrum, I feel like one of the most interesting names in this roundtable was Josh Harris, who is someone who has sort of done a 180 on his views about relationships. He kind of rose to fame 2 decades ago with his book, I Kissed Dating Goodbye, something that he has since apologized for and has really, shaped the way that a lot of Christians feel about dating. We also have, someone on the panel who's like an expert in kind of current events and lifestyle issues that are really important. Sarah Bessey, who's written for the New York Times and a lot of other really well-respected outlets. So this is a really well-rounded and really challenging section. And I think one that most clearly illustrates how far we've gone when it comes to those issues like that affect our day-to-day lives since we first started the mag.
I really loved how this section came together because it's not an easy thing to talk about intentional living. It's so complicated, and it grows more complicated, it seems like, from our perspective all the time, with digital media, with the advent of with the new justice movement, with the sort of like woke social media movement that can feel like it gets very, very difficult to know what's right and what's wrong. And these voices all handled it so well. Yeah. I was just so grateful. I learned a lot reading through these. I wish we could have included the entirety of all of their answers. We had to cut some of them down a little bit, which I'm glad we get these to air some of them on the podcast here because it was so cool to read these.
Yeah. If only we had a web publishing strategy to go deeper throughout the next 2 months. I'd say this is the area that's changed the most. I mean, obviously the advent of social media permanently changed everything, right? I would say the change in how this generation has talked about and engaged mental health is significant. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing, one of the biggest things that we've seen is, 15 years ago, every college kid wanted to start a band, and now every college kid wants to start a 501c3. And I think the rise of activism, which then led to more activism is difficult, right? Yeah. Fundraising or just awareness is difficult. So what's the more sustainable model? And so the creation or the advent of social entrepreneurism, the Blake McCoskeys and the Liz Bohannons, I think is really interesting how we can engage commerce and business in a way that makes the world a better place. Yeah. And this is an outgrowth of faith, that this is like, Jesus called us to make a positive difference in our worlds. And it doesn't have to be world like global. It could be world like your world, the people around you and your world. But that we are called to leave a positive mark as an expression of our faith. And people are doing that in business and in life and in so many ways. It was really fascinating to read in this issue. So there's timelines. We pick our top albums of the last 100 issues. There's a lot of
easy. No stress there.
A lot of fights, lots of fights.
One staff member did not make it through.
That's actually
flowers can be sent to his home.
But we that's terrible. But that is true.
It was a fight to the death. It was a literal cage match in the office. 2 men in, one left, and
it is a definitive list that you cannot argue with. We rank the definitive rankings of the albums, and Tyler does not agree with number one, but Jesse and I feel very strongly about it. So.
I wasn't going to say it.
I was trying to get Bruce Springsteen number one, and we were just not having it. Not this time.
You're number one in my heart, Bruce.
Well, go check it out. 100th issue is out. It's a big deal. Like we said, we will be bringing you web content, podcast content, and other special experiences throughout the next couple of months. We also at Relevant Store have special collector bundles. Go check them out. We have like selections of the best cover story issues, and here's like a pack of 5. Or if you want to go deep, or you happen to own like a library and you want all 100 issues, we got that too. So go check it out at the Relevant Store. 100 issues, guys. Jesse, you've been part of the majority of them, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Quite a ride. Congratulations to you, too, both you guys. It's been, I mean, like I said, part of the fun was looking back at, all the things we've done.
How bad some of the covers were?
Yeah.
Do you remember your first cover, Jesse? The first cover that you wrote?
The first cover story I wrote was Mute Math. The first issue something I wrote appeared in it, I believe, was Mace. If that tells you anything, it's been a while.
that tells me a lot.
It was from a distant long time ago when people would consider putting Mace on the cover of a magazine. So
I have, I was looking for certain covers or whatever, and asked one of our current employees, hey, do we have the Mace issue here? And she, being one of our younger employees, looked me dead in the eye and said, what's Mace?
Yeah.
And I went, oh no.
Yeah. You know what? That's good. That's good.
Didn't stand the test of time.
That's the longevity.
I will say this. When I was thumbing through that issue, I was wheezing through the dust and the deteriorating ink that I'm pretty confident has poisoned my blood. And I saw that back then, Cameron, we used to do at the end, now it's sort of evolved. It's now, we do like to do this section of the magazine called Selects, where we spotlight some artists that we're really excited about. But we used to do like small album reviews and small staff recommendations. And even though I don't even think I was on staff officially yet, I was asked to do a staff recommendation. And I did The Killer's Hot Fuss like 2 weeks after it came out. And that album still holds up. And I stand for that. I could have picked something very embarrassing. That was like 2005. I could have picked something that would have humiliated myself, but that stands in print. And hey, look, that's a good album, just a little trivia for you.
You passed over the opportunity for Eiffel 65's "I'm Blue, Abba Dee, Abba Die" to be that could have been it, but instead,
all right, well, go check it out. The issue 100 of Relevant premiered this week. Wow! All right, stay tuned. Up next, Tedashii joins us. You're listening to Illenium and John Bellion. The song is Good Things Fall Apart. Tedashii is a rapper on Reach Records, and throughout his career, he's assisted in planting churches throughout the country, and he currently serves at Texas's Village Church. You might have heard of it. Tedashii is one of 40 artists, influencers, activists, leaders, and academics featured in the 100th issue of Relevant, in which we look at the state of culture, justice, the church, and intentional living, where we've been and where we're going. Tedashii was part of the faith conversation, the faith section. And what we have for you is a couple of clips, a couple of parts of our conversation with Tedashii.
Yeah, the reason, like you were saying, Karen, that we wanted to include Tedashii is because his background is so unique in that he's been involved in church planting, he's been involved in professional ministry, and he's also an artist that we really like. So he has a very interesting perspective, and one of the things that we wanted to ask him about in particular was what was some of the developments in the last 20 years that he is most encouraged about when it comes to the church. And what he said, we heard echoed a little bit, but I want people to hear what Tedashii has to say about diversity.
I would think one of the most encouraging developments would be the pursuit of honest dialogue around the ideas of race and social justice. I remember having a conversation with someone, and it was a very eye-opening conversation about the whole phrase of Sunday mornings are the most segregated times in America. And from that, I've been a part of several different church plants, as well as just friends that are members at churches that I visit, where the congregation, the membership has gone from such a homogenous ideal of representation of the faith to this very integrated effort toward an idea of representing Christ, which has been, I think, largely in part to whether you have Black or Hispanic leaders like in Houston or in Atlanta, the two places that I've lived, that I've seen these people plant churches and have this mixed race congregation, or you have places in Dallas where I've lived. Just I've seen the picture of it take place. And so I mentioned that because it's in these places where people have kind of decided to link arms that they've been faced with having to really know one another, which has in turn fostered a lot of, I think, healthy dialogue. I think there's still a long road ahead, but in some of these places that I've experienced, I've seen that be an agenda on the table.
That was one thing I think we had heard, to varying degrees throughout particularly the God Roundtable, is the evolution of how the church, deals with issues concerning race. But what I really like, Tedashii, how he framed it is, he's encouraged by the intentionality of creating diverse congregations. And how that really doesn't just benefit the congregation, it really benefits the church as an institution, because you get these advanced perspectives on really important issues.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And I like how he highlighted the sort of the byproduct of a more diverse congregation is a more diverse like train of thought. Like you're not just bringing in people who look different, but people who think different, who've seen things you haven't seen, experienced things you haven't experienced. It makes for a stronger, better church, not just one that has a more appealing, diverse picture of it to put up on the website.
Well, one of my favorite answers, and this is something that we talked about in the roundtable, is about the perception that's actually gotten worse. Like, in a lot of ways, like we were talking about with diversity, there's a long way to go, but the church has gotten better. But one thing that's gotten worse is more and more people perceive Christians to be judgmental. Culturally. And, that's something the research has bared out, and, different experts within the piece were able to talk about. But, I really like what Tedashii had said, because it's very solution oriented on how we can switch that perception moving forward. Here's what he said.
On one hand, Jesus said they'll know us by our love one for another. So in that, I think we can automatically begin to address that concern by the way that we in fact love one another. And I only bring it up because I think of 1 Thessalonians when Paul says, hey, the love that you have for one another has been so great that it's pressed forward the gospel into the outer regions, like into places like Achaia. However, abound more in love. And you're going like, what? You said we're doing great. You said it's been spreading. Oh, you want us to grow in that and continue it though. Got you. And so I don't know why, but I feel like the love we have for one another could abound in a way that we haven't yet either given room for, or that we have, but that we've gotten stagnant in, weary in. And so I know in the places where I've been on staff at churches or just serving in different ministries, when people come up there, I've had it happen where people say, yo, I don't know what it is about you guys, but y'all are different. And clearly I believe there's a light shown that the Bible talks about, but it's through the lens of the love that we've expressed. And even people have said, man, y'all really love each other. I don't get it. I just don't understand it. Even my own relatives would visit and they go, this is so intense that I would call it fake, because I just can't believe people can love each other like this. And I'm going, no, I think just because of the love of Christ that we share, this is real.
A lot of people rightly will look at how the most vocal, people who are looked at as Christian leaders or influencers engage social issues, and, the perception of judgment is built around what they say. But I like what Tedashii is saying here, that like, let's first focus on how we're treating each other. Let's make that a priority too, because when people see that, they want to be a part of it. And all of a sudden those perceptions about, being judgmental melt away, because you see real, genuine love within these communities.
Yeah, that was super cool. That speaks very, very highly of the church.
Let's do one more clip, and I liked this is another one that I felt like this is a really challenging answer, because we ask a lot of our panel in the God section of how do we get better at evangelism, because that is something, again, we wanted these roundtables to be based and informed by actual research and stats. And one of the stats that there's this massive decline in what we think of as evangelism. And this is something that, who better to ask than people that are serving on the front lines of ministry throughout the world and the country. And so when I asked Tedashii about how we could better be equipped for evangelism, I mean, this is a challenging answer, especially for people who are like into churches, kind of building their brands as institutions and not focusing so much on getting people into the church, but getting them into, the little C church, but getting them into the big C church should be the priority. Here's what Tedashii said.
Evangelism has been eclipsed by outreach. And what I mean by that is we've basically found a way to win people to our services, and yet somehow been at a loss for how to fully engage them with the gospel to win them to the Lord. And that's across the board. Like I've had tons of friends that I've invited to churches, excited because I know that day they're going to hear the gospel. But I've not taken, in a sense, a personal ownership of pursuing that person with the gospel beyond church invitation. And I don't necessarily want to belittle church invitation. I think that's a big deal and a part of the process for some people. And it's just seemed, in a few experiences, it just seems like the outreach began and ended with getting them to church.
Man, evangelism has been eclipsed by outreach. That is a loaded,
it's challenging.
And it's a, because it's easy to conflate those two things. But what he's saying there is like, this isn't about building a local church. This is about discipleship. This is about relationship. This is about getting people in the door. If we want to change evangelism, we don't just need to, change how we doctrinally approach people and engage in difficult conversations. No, we need to reapproach what we think about outreach. This isn't just building small kingdoms. It's building a big one. And so, man, his perspective, again, all of the names that are in this issue, I'm so proud of this issue because I really did feel like we strived to bring a perspective that comes from a lot of angles. And having someone like Tedashii, who's in the music world, but has done so much in the ministry world, was super valuable and just one of the many brilliant people that we were privileged enough to talk to in these roundtables.
Well, that was Tedashii. If you want to check out more of that conversation, check out relevantmagazine.com. Issue 100 is there for the viewing. Listening to Cold War Kids. They're back. Song is Complainer. All right, we're mixing things up this week. Normally we do our feedback segment on the Tuesday show, but why not? Let's mix it up. So it's time for your feedback. So on last Tuesday's show, not Tuesday, but the one before that, we got talking about waterbeds and about leaky waterbeds and Eddie's memories of his dad trying to plug the leaky waterbed to much frustration. And so our question of the week was, we want to know what's the funniest thing you've witnessed involving a minor catastrophe and someone getting irrationally angry. Now, to be honest, over the weekend, other things had taken over the Relevant Podcast Twitter feed. You guys got talking about a bunch of other stuff, so there's not a ton of feedback, but there's some good stories.
I want to read the first one from Taylor, and I have a theory, because this question had like two parts. We wanted to hear what horrible thing happened and the reaction from the person that was irrationally angry. I have a theory about the first one I'm going to read. Now, the name is Taylor, and the image that I saw on Twitter was it was a woman. I think, here's my theory. I think the dad listened to the podcast who was this perpetrated on, and he was the one that got irrationally angry. And I think he took to his daughter's Twitter account to tell the horrible things she did and left his anger part out. And he's just saying how horrible it was. I'm going to read it as if I'm the angry dad. Okay. Because that's my theory. He's exposing something terrible that happened. One summer for an outdoor house party, they hid the yard sprinkler in the garage, forgetting it was on a timer. Next morning, the entire garage was soaked. Tools, electronic, luggage, etc. We put it all in the driveway. People thought it was a yard sale.
She said they put it in the driveway to dry out. And
That's definitely the angry dad. Like, he's still, like, that happened when Taylor was in high school. Taylor's probably about to graduate college, and Taylor's dad is still so fuming about this that he hacked her Twitter account. That's my theory. I think it adds up.
Funny. Katie said, my friend Kelsey had a waterbed from age 3 to 8th grade when it popped at her Christmas slumber party. That's funny.
I'm bummed that I missed the waterbed talk, because I had one kindergarten through high school the whole entire time. Absolutely, yeah. This is true. This is a real story.
Who gives a kindergartner a waterbed?
Can I be honest with you? Hold on.
Yeah.
I think that I read a study one time that people who had a waterbed for more than 4 years of their youth. Now, you had one for 12.
10, yeah.
Are in prison right now for very horrific crimes.
I'm
shocked you haven't acted out Eminem's Slim Shady album.
This is a fact. 83% of people who had childhood waterbeds are now addicted to meth. So 83% addicted to meth.
A lot of people have tracked the opioid epidemic back to the waterbed trend in the 80s. I don't get the connection. I'm just telling you. Correlation, causality, who knows? There's a reason we're getting waterbeds off the streets, okay? They lead nothing but to deviancy and addiction. You can't spend that many nights, sensually floating on a big pod of water and not turn out like a creep ball. Sorry, Tyler.
All right, so Tyler, tell us, what was it like growing up on a waterbed?
I don't know, man. When you're raised in a waterbed, you don't realize how weird it is that you're in a waterbed. You know what I mean? So it didn't occur to me until much later, like embarrassingly later, that this was like that I was living like sort of a 70s lounge star as like a Nebraskan 14-year-old in the Great Plains, and I would go up and I was the only one in my house. Like my brother and sisters didn't. I don't know. Regular fans of the pod, mom and dad can chime in. Yeah.
There's a difference between living in like the suburbs of Las Vegas and having a waterbed, because of that, you are just a creep ball. You're just a guy that ends up having a van with a mattress in the back, and it's kind of sketchy. To someone in Nebraska having a waterbed, you're a serial killer. You are straight up Jeffrey Dahmer at that point.
I'm curious in your world there.
Yeah.
Did you think it was super cool? You thought it was cool. Like, did your friends think it was cool?
I don't think I feel like I'm like a guest on a podcast now. I guess I can, but I don't feel like it ever even occurred. It really, I can't stress how normal it was, how like unaware I was that it was even like, this is just the bed I'd always had. It was just my waterbed.
Here's my other theory, Cameron. Tyler's talked about this. It's not like I'm outing you, Tyler, but Tyler, you've talked about how you were homeschooled. Yeah, I don't think the public school would let you in if you had a waterbed. I think you fill out a form to be like, are you vaccinated? What grade level? Do you have a waterbed? If so, no, not anywhere near here, kiddo. Sorry.
I have thought in retrospect that it probably was part of the reason that if I struggled romantically in high school, which I didn't, but I think when you like invite a girl for the first time,
many of the women that actually got back to me were actually in their 40s. It was weird, creepy, waterbed stuff. It was waterbed stuff. Okay, I don't like talking about it. I'm just saying it's waterbed stuff, guys.
And it did pop on more than one occasion. I did wake up in like a pool, in like a actual swimming pool, like just waking up at night, and I'm just there, like underwater as a child.
Oh no! After the first time it popped, that's when you get a regular mattress.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you're
I wasn't buying my mattresses at the time. I was a child.
No, your parents. I'm saying. Oh, my child's bed just
it's
popped.
So weird.
I'm gonna replace it with a non-water filled bed.
Weird. Okay, here's what doesn't add up about this story. Help me out here, Cameron. I don't think Tyler has the reflection to see this objectively. He's too close to the situation. He slept on that thing for 12 years.
Yeah, it's like a family pet. It's a friend.
Exactly.
Yeah, so his parents are purchasing bedding for him, themselves, and his siblings. Yeah. And for some reason, they're like, oh, now we got to pick up Tyler's. We got his brother a race car bed. That's pretty funny. We got us the Sealy Posturepedic. What does old Tyler get? Well, he's a waterbed kid for sure. There's nothing else we can do about it, honey. He's a waterbed kid. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know, but he's a waterbed guy.
Because he said he was in kindergarten when he got it, so it's not like he's like a 12-year-old going, "Mom, I really want this cool bed." No, he was.
I had no say.
They deemed you the waterbed child. It wasn't like all the kids had waterbeds. It was you. What about you said waterbed to them? I'm curious. That's
we could have him on the pod. I don't know. We could ask him. I have a lot of questions, but we could sort it all out. Now, whenever I ask my wife if we can return, I think we should be the waterbed couple. I get weird looks, even though
as you should.
It's what made me the man I am today.
One of the things I'm learning in the therapy parts of The Sopranos is she said on the episode I saw yesterday that pretty much all psychology stems from things that happen to people in their childhood. Oh, yeah. And how you responded to it or how you're acting out or you're aspiring to something is something from your childhood, always. Tyler, are you in therapy right now? Because I want you to be.
I'm going to counseling because we have not gotten into the waterbed stuff yet. Whenever I bring it up, he's like, we don't have time.
Tony didn't want to talk about his mom. He didn't want to talk about childhood stuff. He thought he was there for other reasons. It's taken years for him to even accept the fact that things in his childhood are why he's experiencing these things as an adult. Tyler, you need to go there. If your counselor doesn't know that you grew up on a waterbed, she doesn't know to mind that with you. You need to deal with it, man.
So what you're suggesting is that Tyler's waterbeds are the ducks in his swimming pool.
Yes.
It's this nuisance that is haunting him day and night.
But he didn't even know it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're suggesting that I need because my counselor, believe me, is aware of the waterbed situation. And whenever I bring it up, he gets sort of a dark look in his eye and he said, you're not outside of my pay grade. That's not.
You're trying to. You were putting it on the table. Please help me process this. And he's like, I can't help you.
He said that's beyond.
Wow.
This is correctional facility.
I think next season. Did you ever see Mindhunt? Another great Netflix show. It was like David Fincher that like it was like about a guy it was like about the start of the FBI and this guy who profiles serial killers. I heard the next season of Mindhunter, which has long been gestating, and David Fincher and some of the best minds in Hollywood are working on it, is about Tyler's upbringing with a waterbed. And it's just like, this is how we create the sickest person in the world. We put him on a waterbed from age 4 until he leaves his house. And the deviance he's capable of is unlike anything humanity has ever seen. In order to conquer evil, we must create evil and look it in the eye, and hence Tyler's waterbed.
Tyler, when you lay your head down at night and you lay down, do you miss the gentle rocking of the waves?
Oh.
Do you crave your childhood home and the safety and nurturing that you felt in that space?
So I'm 34 years old, so I'm still over half of my life was spent in a waterbed. We are still not at the point where I have fully adjusted.
I have a theory.
Yeah.
Okay. The only other person that has ever slept in a waterbed from age 4 to graduating high school ended up getting a giant bass guitar on his back. And if it wasn't for a literal miracle, would be a serial killer right now. Thankfully, he was lifted from his deviancy, by the hand of God himself.
Yes.
But that's the only other guy. And he ended up with a bass guitar tattooed on his back. So Tyler, I'm praying for a miracle because...
Yeah.
I've
got some tattoos. I don't know if they're quite as dramatic as the bass guitar tattoo, but I'm working through it maybe a little slower than our friend with the bass guitar with the big back piece. I'll get there. Give me some time, man.
All right.
I need space. Space.
All right, Ryan's this one made me laugh. Okay. A tar truck overturned in front of our house. It's on the main road in Ocean City, Maryland, in case you're wondering. The driver of a white luxury car thought his time was too valuable for a detour. So he, I can just picture it in my mind, him like turning, like, oh, come on, and like coming good to go around. He drove across the liquid black surface and, sprayed, you can just picture it spraying up everywhere. I watched karma splatter up his sheet metal. I love when people get angry in traffic.
That's great.
When it's outside of all of our control and then try to do some weird maneuver. You either get pulled over right away or end up like in a ditch or something. That is very satisfying.
I like the karma of that. I'll always be here for people trying to show like that they can make their own way. They don't need to abide by society's laws and then just immediately eating it in the face.
Hey, Cameron, do you know the type of people that literally believe in karma and they're just like, it's karma, man. Like legit people that grew up on waterbeds. They get a lot of weird new agey stuff going on. Like, that's what you know what came with the waterbed? Tyler, we talked about this last week. It came with samurai swords. The waterbed. It came with a lot of early vape gear, and I think some dream catchers too. I think just like weird dream catchers just hang around your room. That's the waterbed, and like a blacklight poster of something
of a wolf. Of a wolf.
Yeah, a wolf, and then a Scarface poster. Even though even those people have never seen Scarface, like that's what it comes with a waterbed. They just gift that stuff to you. Here's your dream catchers. Don't forget to hang those up all over the place.
I literally will never look at you the same, Tyler, now that I know what I know.
It's probably still out. I don't know where the waterbed is now. When I moved out of the house to go to college, that was the bed I left behind.
So it's still in your parents' house, probably.
I don't think so. I don't know. It's not. I mean, if it's not in one piece in my parents' house.
It would be very easy to have taken it with you. You just drain it and roll it up and put it in your suitcase. I mean,
I don't think the good people of Moody Bible Institute would be interested in having a waterbed in the dorms.
No. Yeah, there's no way they're letting
that's
that
bringing in a deviant lifestyle. It's not in
even dance there. You think they're going to let a waterbed anywhere near that place? Cameron, have you ever noticed that when we see Tyler after a long time, you go in for a hug and it's like, hey, how are you, buddy? He squeezes a little too hard and too long. That's a waterbed move. That's a guy who grew up in a waterbed move. He doesn't know social norms when it comes to displays of physical affection. A waterbed just warps it for life. I'm sorry, Tyler. I've been meaning to say something, but
I have noticed
creeping everybody out.
I have noticed when we embrace that your back is very tight. I wonder if that's because
a real issue.
I wonder if that's because it was clenched for 15 years, lying in that, trying to
stay
they
afloat.
couldn't ever relax. They couldn't ever relax fully because it was not supported.
I'm not going to defend the waterbed situation. I'm not here to say that it was normal or that it was fine or anything like that. I will say that I grew up just every night I got to crawl in. It was like sleeping on a cloud. It was falling asleep on like a giant squishy balloon, and I slept great.
Did you have
every day of my life?
The fact that you slept great is making it way, way worse because that means he's someone who committed a horrific act. And they're like, how do you sleep at night? He's like, I sleep just fine. I grew up on a waterbed. You think
that you hear about long-term ex-cons, they finally get released out into society and they don't know how to function in the real world. They need the structure. They need the boundaries of.
That's all true.
When you went to the Moody Bible Institute and for the first time in your life, we're sleeping on a pedestrian mattress,
like a normie.
Did you crave and long for your water pillow cloud of home? And did it hinder your ability to adjust to the real world after you left?
It's like that scene in The Count of Monte Cristo where he's been sleeping on the floor of that cave for so many years. He eventually strikes it rich as a count, and he's got this giant bed, and he's sleeping back on the floor with no blanket. That's Tyler, like sneaking into like someone's covered pool in downtown Chicago and just lying on top of like the leaf cover. Who's that kid out there? Why is he sleeping? Oh, he grew up on a waterbed. He can't sleep any other way. That's all he knows.
You can't sleep any other way.
It's the Count of Monte Cristo thing. You've seen it.
Like 300 little water balloons that I pile on top of my own mattress. Just
oh man! All right, it's time for this week's
editorial question of the week. Hey.
Well, earlier in the show, we brought you for some reason. We got talking about the Jersey Shore and the inevitable viewing of many bad tattoos that Jesse will endure the last few days or next few days. It got us thinking about bad tattoos, and that's this week's question of the week. We want to know the worst tattoo you've ever seen in the wild on an actual person. Describe it in full detail. We want to know. And then maybe your theory of what it meant or what their story was that they got it. Maybe that'll help.
I like that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's a good
idea.
idea.
What was in their head?
I think everybody understands now why my knuckle tats are waterbed.
Yeah, it didn't make sense, but now we know.
So it's pretty straightforward.
Hit us up on Twitter @Relevant Podcast, or you can post your longer theories on the podcast episode page at relevantmagazine.com. All right, that'll be fun. Well, many thanks to Tedashii for joining us. Make sure to check out more of that conversation in issue 100 of Relevant. It is out now. You can go to relevantmagazine.com, view the whole thing. You can also subscribe. There's a good deal going on. We had a great sale going on for July 4th. I think it's still running. Go check it out, relevantmagazine.com, issue 100 of Relevant. It's also available at newsstands nationwide. And, there you go. Go get it. We put a lot of work into that thing. Thanks also to Squarespace for supporting the show. Go to squarespace.com/relevant for a free trial. And when you are ready to launch your website, use the offer code RELEVANT to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up. Have fun in the Jersey Shore, Jesse.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck out there, man.
Definitely will.
All right. I'm Cameron Strang.
I'm Chandler String.
I'm Jesse Carey.
I'm Tyler Huckabee.
We will see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Relevant Podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to leave us a review on iTunes. Check out other shows from the Relevant Podcast Network in the podcast section at relevantmagazine.com. And while you're there, browse exclusive podcast merchandise at our online store. Make sure to subscribe to Relevant Magazine. Info is available at relevantmagazine.com/subscribe.
Come forth for the white throne judgment. Pew, 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 pew.
Relevant Podcast Network.